My family wanted millions of dollars in insurance and they planned to hurt me. The Montana air of late autumn carried a crisp bite, a prelude to the long winter ahead. But the chill in the air was nothing compared to the unease that had been settling over me like an unwelcome frost. My days were a comforting rhythm of small hands and bright, inquisitive eyes. As a kindergarten teacher in our close-knit town, I spent my mornings surrounded by the joyful chaos of children learning their ABCs and painting vibrant, if abstract, masterpieces. My afternoons, however, belonged to my own little masterpiece, my 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily. Her father, Mark's blue eyes sparkled with an endless curiosity, mirroring the vast Montana sky, and she'd inherited my restless spirit, expressing itself in a constant need to create, to draw, to fill every spare moment with color and form. Our bond was the anchor of my life, a steady warmth against the growing coldness I felt emanating from other corners of it. Mark, my husband, was a software engineer, his world a landscape of intricate codes and virtual realities. His work often took him away, overseeing project deployments in distant tech hubs. Once, his absences had felt like temporary inconveniences, the anticipation of his return a comforting hum beneath the surface of our daily life. But lately, his departures felt different, heavier. His returns were marked by a weary detachment, his attention often still tethered to his laptop screen even when he was physically present. The easy laughter that once filled our small home had become a strained politeness. His blue eyes, once so full of warmth for Lily and me, now held a distant, preoccupied gaze. My parents, George and Helen, lived a short 20-minute drive away on their sprawling ranch nestled near the foothills. Their retirement had always seemed idyllic, a slow, peaceful rhythm of tending their land and indulging their granddaughter. Lily adored them, her small face lighting up at the prospect of a visit. George would patiently explain the workings of the tractor, and Helen would always have a batch of her famous chocolate chip cookies waiting. I'd always believed their love for Lily was a steadfast, unwavering thing, but lately, a subtle shift in Helen's demeanor towards Lily had begun to prickle at my peace. It wasn't outright coldness, but a guardedness, a hesitancy in her touch, as if Lily were a delicate object she was afraid of breaking. Then there was my older sister, Vivian. 5 years my senior, Vivian had always moved through life with a polished ease that I both admired and felt slightly inadequate beside. A successful architect in the bustling metropolis of Denver, Vivian had carved out a sophisticated, child-free existence. Our lives were starkly different, my world a kaleidoscope of finger paint and bedtime stories, hers a sleek landscape of blueprints and gallery openings. Yet, she made an effort to attend family gatherings, always impeccably dressed, her conversations peppered with casual references to her international design projects. It was at a recent family barbecue, the scent of George's grilling mingling with the crisp autumn air, that Vivian had dropped her seemingly innocuous suggestion. As we were gathered on the porch, watching Lily chase butterflies in the fading sunlight, Vivian had turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Clara," she'd begun, her voice smooth and measured, "have you ever considered that Lily might really thrive in a more specialized environment? Denver has some exceptional arts-focused programs. She could even stay with me for a few months. Really immerse herself." I'd stared at her, stunned. Lily was 6. Her world was still one of scraped knees and imaginary friends. "Vivian, what are you talking about?" Vivian had offered a practiced smile, one that didn't quite reach her cool gray eyes. "Just thinking about her future. Clara, you're busy with work. Mark's always traveling. I just want to help her explore her artistic potential." I hadn't responded, a knot of unease tightening in my chest. That night, lying beside a sleeping Lily, her small hand curled trustingly in mine, Vivian's words replayed in my mind, a discordant note in the quiet symphony of our life. Mark's increasing absences, Helen's guardedness, Vivian's sudden interest, they were like scattered pieces of a puzzle, slowly, disturbingly beginning to form a picture I didn't want to see. The following morning, while I was brushing the tangles from Lily's bright blonde hair, she looked up at me, her blue eyes unusually serious. "Mommy," she'd asked, her small voice barely a whisper, "if one day I don't live with you anymore, will you be sad?" My heart had lurched. "Who told you that, sweetie?" I'd asked, my voice carefully neutral. Grandma was talking to Aunt Vivian, she'd replied, her brow furrowed in innocent confusion. They said maybe I'd go live with Aunt Vivian in Denver, where there are better art schools. The pieces clicked into place with a chilling finality. Vivian's helpful suggestion, Helen's strange behavior, Lily's innocent words. It wasn't a casual thought. It was a plan. A plan that had been set in motion without my knowledge, with my own daughter as the centerpiece. And a cold dread settled over me, a premonition that this was just the beginning of something far more insidious than I could possibly imagine. Clara's world, once a familiar landscape of routine and gentle affection, began to feel like a treacherous terrain, every shadow holding a potential threat. Vivian's seemingly innocent suggestion about Lily living in Denver had burrowed deep into my consciousness, a persistent unease that colored my every interaction with my family. I found myself watching Mark more closely, his late-night returns and distracted demeanor now viewed through a lens of suspicion. Even Helen's interactions with Lily, once a source of comfort, now felt subtly strained, her touch fleeting, her gaze often averted. A few days later, during Lily's kindergarten pickup, her teacher, Mrs. Davison, approached me with a concerned expression. "Clara," she began, her voice gentle, "Lily mentioned something rather concerning today. She seemed quite anxious about the possibility of moving away. She said someone told her she might have to leave you and live in a different city." My blood ran cold. Lily's innocent words, echoing the conversation she'd overheard, were now corroborated by an external observation. "Did she say who told her that, Mrs. Davison?" I asked, my voice tight. "She just mentioned it in passing during circle time," Mrs. Davison replied, her brow furrowed. It seemed to be causing her some distress. "Is everything all right at home, Clara?" I forced a reassuring smile, thanking Mrs. Davison for her concern and promising to look into it. But inside, a storm was brewing. I didn't confront Mark that evening. Instead, I called Helen, my voice carefully casual. "Mom, Vivian mentioned something about Lily maybe spending some time with her in Denver. Have you talked to her about that?" There was a noticeable pause on the other end, a hesitation that spoke volumes. "Vivian just thinks Lily is a bright girl, Clara. She feels Denver might offer her more opportunities down the line. Nothing concrete, dear. Just ideas being discussed." "Ideas being discussed with whom, Mom? Without me, Lily's mother?" My carefully constructed composure began to fray, a sharp edge creeping into my voice. "Lily is 6 years old. Her future is my decision, Mark's decision, not Vivian's, not yours." Helen sighed, a familiar sound of exasperation. "Clara, don't be so dramatic. Vivian is just trying to be helpful. You and Mark are so busy." "Helpful?" The word felt like a bitter taste in my mouth. 2 days later, Vivian herself arrived at my doorstep unannounced, a cheerful smile plastered on her face and a large bag in her hand. "Just thought I'd pop by and see my favorite niece," she announced, breezing past me into the living room. She produced an array of expensive art supplies from the bag: professional-grade watercolors, a set of fine-tipped drawing pens, a sketchbook with thick, creamy paper. Lily's eyes widened in delight. Vivian then turned to me, her smile radiating forced warmth. "And I was thinking, Clara, about our little chat the other day. You know, about Lily and Denver. I found this amazing after-school art program. It's really prestigious. If she stayed with me for a few months, she could really get a head start." I didn't touch the offered coffee or the art supplies. My gaze was fixed on Vivian, my suspicion hardening into a cold certainty. "What are you really doing, Vivian?" Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she let out a light, dismissive laugh. "What do you mean?" "I'm being a good aunt, supporting my niece's interests, and trying to offer you a little respite, Clara. You always look so tired." "Respite by taking my 6-year-old daughter hundreds of miles away from her mother?" My voice was low and steady, the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Is that really what you think is best for Lily?" Vivian set her coffee cup down a little too forcefully, her smooth facade finally cracking. "Clara, you're overreacting. Mark is under a tremendous amount of pressure with work. Mom and Dad are worried about you both. We all just want what's best for Lily." "What's best for Lily is for her to be with her parents," I stated firmly, the words leaving no room for argument. A tight, unfamiliar smile flickered across Vivian's face. "You think being a mother means you get to decide everything, Clara? You're mistaken. Children aren't property." The casual cruelty in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't the sister I thought I knew. That night, a gnawing unease kept me awake long after Lily had drifted off to sleep. I found myself tidying Mark's discarded jacket, a habit born of years of domestic routine. My fingers brushed against a stiff, unopened envelope in an inside pocket. It was from a law firm in Denver. Inside, my blood ran cold as I unfolded the documents. Information about child custody consultations and a draft agreement for temporary co-parenting, outlining a transfer of primary physical custody to Mark, with Vivian listed as a secondary caregiver. I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the silence of the house amplifying the frantic beating of my heart. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to mock the stillness of my world, a world that was fracturing with each passing moment. Only one question echoed in my mind, a chilling premonition of a nightmare unfolding. How are they planning to take my daughter away from me? Lily was asleep in her room, her small form curled beneath her favorite blanket, her innocent trust a sharp ache in my chest. But this time, I couldn't simply watch her sleep. A storm was coming, not from the Montana skies, but from the very people who shared my blood. And I knew with a terrifying certainty that I couldn't stay still any longer. I wasn't just protecting Lily from a misguided idea. I was protecting her from a calculated, devastating plan. The discovery of the legal documents ignited a cold fury within me, a stark contrast to the gnawing anxiety that had plagued me for weeks. The pieces of the puzzle had clicked into place with a horrifying clarity, revealing a betrayal that cut deeper than I could have imagined. The casual suggestions, the evasive answers, the unsettling comments, they were all part of a calculated maneuver to separate me from Lily. I knew I couldn't confront Mark directly yet. I needed more information, a clearer understanding of the extent of their plan. Then came Helen's call that Saturday morning, her voice unnaturally bright and cheerful. "Clara, darling, we're planning a little family outing tomorrow, a hike up to Eagle Peak. The fall colors are supposed to be spectacular, and Lily would just love it. It's not too far, just a couple of hours' drive." My senses immediately went on high alert. My family was not the spontaneous, outdoorsy type, especially not for a last-minute 2-hour drive into the mountains in the chilly autumn air. "Who all is going?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, just the usual gang," Helen replied airily. "Your father's already packing a picnic basket, and Vivian's coming too. You just need to get yourself and Lily ready." A knot of suspicion tightened in my stomach. Vivian, in hiking boots? It was an image that didn't quite compute. "Mark won't be able to make it," I stated, more as a confirmation than a question. There was a slight hesitation on the other end. "Oh, that's a shame, but we'll take plenty of pictures for him. It'll be a nice girls' day out." That night, I mentioned the outing to Mark, watching his reaction closely. He barely looked up from his laptop, a slight frown creasing his brow. "Tomorrow? Oh, right. I have a critical project deadline. I probably won't be able to get away." His explanation felt too rehearsed, too convenient, further solidifying my suspicion of his involvement. "Then Lily and I will go," I said, my voice flat. "But Mark?" I continued, my gaze unwavering. "Do you feel like things have been a little strange lately with the family?" He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes finally meeting mine, but they held a guarded, unreadable expression. "You're probably just overthinking things, Clara. Some fresh air might do you good." His dismissive tone stung, but it also fueled my resolve. I knew something was terribly wrong, and I wasn't going to back down. The next morning, I packed a backpack with sandwiches, fruit, water, and my small first aid kit, a habit ingrained from years of kindergarten field trips. Lily, oblivious to the turmoil churning within me, was a bundle of excited energy, her bright blonde hair peeking out from under her favorite knitted hat. George's truck arrived promptly. Helen sat in the passenger seat, her smile a little too wide, a little too forced. Vivian was in the back next to Lily, sporting trendy athletic wear that looked brand new. It was odd, considering I'd never seen her engage in any form of strenuous physical activity before, but I kept my observations to myself. The drive was filled with Lily's cheerful chatter, her small voice pointing out every colorful leaf and interesting rock. The scenery was beautiful, the crisp sunlight filtering through the golden and crimson foliage. But beneath the surface of the idyllic setting, a current of unease ran through me. Vivian occasionally glanced at me over her designer sunglasses, her expression unreadable. Each time I met her gaze, she quickly turned away, feigning interest in her phone. "Texting someone?" I'd asked once, my tone casual. She'd paused for a beat, then offered a tight smile. "Just checking the signal. It's patchy up here." Then Helen chimed in from the front seat, her voice carrying an unsettlingly cheerful tone. "Today's going to be a special day, Clara, one you'll never forget." Even though she was smiling, her words sent a shiver down my spine. George, too, seemed unusually preoccupied, his eyes frequently flicking to the rearview mirror, his gaze shifting between Lily and me and the winding road behind us. We finally stopped at an open clearing near the edge of a gentle slope. In the distance, a breathtaking vista of rolling hills and vibrant autumn colors stretched out before us. The air was clean and crisp, but my apprehension wouldn't dissipate. George parked the truck, turned off the engine, and announced, "From here, it's just a short 20-minute walk to a cliff with an absolutely stunning view. Haven't been there in years. You'll love it, Lily." I slung the backpack over my shoulder, took Lily's hand, and followed them onto a narrow, less defined path leading into a denser patch of trees. "This is a newer route," George explained, his tone a little too casual. "Not many people know about it. The view from the end is truly something else." But the path didn't feel familiar, didn't match the trails I remembered from childhood outings. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Something about this felt wrong. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the sunlight dappling through the thinning canopy cast long, dancing shadows. Lily skipped ahead, her small hand occasionally slipping from mine as she chased after a particularly vibrant leaf. George and Helen walked ahead, their pace surprisingly brisk for a leisurely family hike. Vivian, however, lingered behind, her expensive hiking boots crunching softly on the fallen leaves. She fell back to walk beside me, her gaze sweeping over me with an unnerving intensity. "Have you ever seriously considered sending Lily to a specialized boarding school, Clara?" she asked suddenly, her voice low and conversational, as if discussing the weather. I stopped dead in my tracks. The casualness of her question a stark contrast to the alarm bells ringing in my head. "No, Vivian, absolutely not. Where is this coming from?" Vivian offered a shrug, her eyes hidden behind her sunglasses. "Just a thought. There are some things you can't control forever, Clara. Life changes quickly." Her words, though seemingly innocuous, carried a subtle undercurrent of something more sinister, a veiled threat that made my skin prickle. Just then, Lily, who had run ahead, turned back, her face alight with excitement. "Mommy, there's a really high spot up here. You can see the whole mountain." Before I could respond, George and Helen had already reached the edge of a clearing, their figures silhouetted against the expansive view. I noticed then that none of them were carrying much, a single water bottle each, no extra layers, no snacks, no map, not even a basic compass. My grip tightened on Lily's hand, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. And then I saw it. A fleeting, almost imperceptible glance exchanged between Helen and Vivian, a silent communication that spoke volumes. A cold dread washed over me. This wasn't a scenic overlook. It was a carefully chosen location, far from any other hikers, isolated and exposed. I slowed my pace, pulling Lily closer, my eyes darting around the clearing, searching for any sign of what was truly happening. From the edge of the clearing, the entire valley stretched out before us, a breathtaking panorama of autumn colors bathed in the golden light. It was peaceful, eerily so, like nature itself was trying to lull me into a false sense of security. George stood right at the precipice, pointing out towards the distant horizon. "See that, Clara? If we just go a little further along this ridge, there's another ledge that juts out. The view from there is absolutely incredible. I went there once, years ago." He smiled, but his eyes held a strange, unsettling intensity. I nodded faintly, my gaze never leaving Helen's hand, which was clutching her small backpack with a white-knuckled grip. Vivian stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder, her touch surprisingly firm. "Ever wonder if life could be easier, Clara?" she asked, her voice deceptively gentle. I turned to her, my eyes narrowed, filled with a suspicion that bordered on terror. "What are you talking about, Vivian?" She didn't answer immediately, her lips curving into a slow, chillingly familiar smile. It was the same smile she'd worn when she'd gotten away with something as a child. A smile that held no warmth, only a cold, calculating certainty. Then, suddenly, her hand tightened on my shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong, and she began to steer me towards the very edge of the cliff. "Bah, Bella, I need to show you something," she said, her voice dropping to a low, urgent whisper. "Just for a second." Before I could react, before I could pull away, George stepped quickly towards Lily. My daughter looked up at her grandfather, her face trusting and innocent. "Grandpa, did you see the eagle?" "Of course, sweetheart," George said, his voice sickeningly sweet. "Come here, I'll show you where it flew." He bent down, lifted Lily into his arms, and began walking towards the precipice, his steps deliberate, his gaze fixed on the dizzying drop below. It all happened in a blur, a terrifying sequence of events that unfolded in what felt like slow motion. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice raw with terror. "Put her down!" But before I could lunge forward, before I could reach my daughter, Helen shoved me hard from behind. The unexpected force sent me stumbling, my foot slipping on the loose gravel at the edge. I nearly lost my balance, my arms flailing wildly until one hand managed to grasp a small, gnarled branch clinging precariously to the cliff's edge. Vivian stepped closer, her face now an icy mask, her eyes devoid of any trace of sisterly affection. Her voice, when she spoke, was low and chillingly calm. "I'm sorry, Clara, but this is necessary. It'll be over quickly." Desperation surged through me, a primal wave of protectiveness for Lily. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Dad, put her down." My plea was met with a chillingly blank stare. "She won't remember any of this," he said flatly. Panic exploded. I threw myself forward, grabbing Lily. He lost balance, and my grip on the branch gave way. Wind roared. The sky spun. I wrapped myself around Lily. "Mommy," she screamed. I held her close. We hit branches, rocks. Pain tore through me, but Lily was alive. "Are you okay, Lily?" I whispered. "Mommy." Scared. Darkness threatened, but I fought it. I had to survive for Lily. Pain locked me in place. My eye throbbed. My head spun. My wrist felt broken. My leg numb. Blood and damp earth filled my nose. Lily's faint breath warmed my neck. Slowly, I opened my good eye. "Mom, die?" she whispered. "No, sweetie, I'm here." She buried her face in my chest. Silence, then faint voices from above. "See anything?" Helen's voice. "Not moving," George replied. "Good. No one finds them," Vivian added. I pressed my hand over Lily's mouth. Footsteps faded. When they were gone, I loosened my hand. "Mom, what if they come back?" Lily whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, let's stay still." I pulled her close. Time stopped. Only wind and birds. I listened to her small heart. Anger spread. Betrayal. After a while, Lily lifted her head. "Mom, I heard Aunt Vivian talking to Daddy about insurance money." The chilling implication hung in the air. Despite my pain, a fierce resolve hardened. We would survive. With agonizing slowness, I assessed our situation. Phone likely gone. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "Mommy can't walk fast. Can you find the path if it's safe?" She shook her head, tears welling. "No, I'm not leaving you." I managed a faint smile. "Then we'll go together." I broke off a branch for a crutch, leaning on it and Lily. Every step was agony, but I didn't stop. We would make it out. The truth would come out. Hours later, we found an elderly couple camping. Mrs. Margaret gasped. I couldn't talk. Everything blurred. Sirens, Lily's small hand in mine, her calm voice telling paramedics I protected us. 3 days later, I woke in a hospital. Arm in a cast, leg elevated, bandages everywhere. Lily slept beside me. Detective Callahan sat nearby. Conspiracy. Warrants. They were gone. Federal warrant issued. Protective custody recommended. I looked at Lily. I would fight. More days passed. Thicker case file, toll booth camera, Vivian heading to Nevada. Dean used an alias, flight canceled. Attorney, financial records, Lily's testimony, texts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. Lily walked in. "Mommy, I told Detective Callahan everything." She recounted Vivian's call, her grandparents' conversation, heartbreak and pride. "Were you scared?" I asked softly. No, I just thought if I told the truth, then you wouldn't have to be scared anymore. I held her tight. Days later, Dean found in Nevada, Vanessa at a gas station, Callahan, both in custody, subpoenas from my parents. Call recording, split agreement. Relief, not happiness. Justice. After discharge, witness protection residence. Far away. New names. New start for Lily. Reconnected with Grace in Colorado. Cabin in the woods. Peace. Lily slept through the night. I worked at a clinic. Rhythm again. Lily in a new school. Shy, then drew a picture, girl and woman under the sun. Me and my mom because we walked through a really dark night. Trauma therapy. Focus on survival. Week by week, Lily smiled more. 8 months later, the trial. Wheelchair. Ellie in blue, truth and a mother's strength. Dean bitter, Vanessa cold, parents heads down. Prosecutor laid out evidence. My testimony, Lily's video. Tears in court. Their defense, bitter, blaming. Judge's gavel, 25 years for Dean and Vanessa, 15 for my parents. Relief. Justice spoken. Strangers offered support. You survived. I hugged Lily. We did it, Ellie. Now it's time to start truly living. We moved far away with Grace. Evergreen Valley, new beginnings. Lily drew her family, just us, under the sun. We were survivors.